Okay, we're live, Mario.
Well, good evening and welcome everyone to Walton Community Council annual parish meeting. My name is Mario Toto, I'm Council Chairman, and I welcome all of you councillors, ward councillors and members of the public. Thank you for joining us. You may have seen the agenda already, so we have quite a number of items on there, including questions which you, the residents, have put to us that we'll endeavour to answer later in the agenda. So without further ado, we have our first item, which is probably one of the most important things happening in our area, and that is the South East Milton Keynes development. And you may be aware that we have been quite active in making people aware of what's been going on. You may have seen already 2 leaflets through your doors informing you of the potential consequences of this development. And we've had a working group engaged on looking at the consultation document and coming up with our official response. And we would hope that you would join us in also sending in the response to Milton Keynes Council for that consultation. I would like to hand over to Councillor Adam Chapman-Ballard, who is the chair of the working group concerned with the SCMK development, who will fill you in on a bit more detail as to what is happening, what the next steps might be.
Chairman, could I just butt in there a second, just to tell everybody who's in the meeting that this has been streamed on YouTube. If people do not want to be seen, then if they can turn their videos off, and if everyone can stay on mute while they're not speaking, and if you want to ask any questions, if you could put your hand, if you could go to the reactions at the bottom of the screen and raise your hand or put something in the chat and we will pick it up. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Dan.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Chair. So by ways of introduction, I'm Councillor Adam Chapman-Ballard. I'm the Vice Chairman of Walton Community Council, and I also run the HR committee for WCC. But I've been running more recently the working group that's been looking at the new South East Milton Keynes development. Now, hopefully, everyone has seen the first 2 leaflets, as Mario alluded to, coming through your door, and you'll have a 3rd set coming through in the next day or 2. But what the South East Milton Keynes development is 3,000 new homes that are being built to the south and slightly to the east of the Walton Community Council area, or the Walton area, let's call it. So the other side of the railway line at the moment, where we've got some fields heading around sort of Bow Brick Hill and the fields that head across towards Woburn Sands, all of that will be developed into a new area. Now, the significant challenges that this presents, of course, is how do we ensure that our new neighbours to be in that area get the same facilities and the good environment that we enjoy around here in the Walton area. And by good environment, I mean houses that aren't stacked on top of one another. I mean good access to doctors, to schools, to other facilities, and I mean plenty of green areas. The proposals that have come out from Milton Keynes Council so far to date, and this is the draft consultation that we're asking everyone to comment on and go back to Milton Keynes Council on, involve things like the permanent closing of the V10 level crossing at Bow Brick Hill. It doesn't involve having any other major grid roads being extended into the southeast area. It doesn't have a fixed date, for instance, for doctors or schools to be built. And why do you start to think, well, these problems, they're only for that southeast Milton Keynes area? What's important to understand is the knock-on effect that will have within the Walton area and on our residents and yourselves. So if you think about a doctor's or a school not potentially being built for a couple of years, that means all those people are going to start coming up to try and join, say, Walnut Tree doctors. So if you think it's difficult to get an appointment just now, imagine what happens when you get 5, 6, 7,000 additional people joining. And this is the reason why we've brought this up as something hugely important, especially with things like transport links. The no extension of grid roads in there creates a little bit of an urban island or a little bit of a ghetto, and it will actually create traffic that will then start to come up and pile through and across the H10, trying to get up and down to the A5. And if ever you've tried to travel, for instance, at peak hours past Caldecott, all that business traffic not being able to cross southwards to the A5 South is going to come streaming up through our area. And especially when you go into the summer evenings when kids are more likely to be out playing, and you think about the V10 that's actually got an at-grade crossing with people crossing the road. This is the kind of thing that we don't really want to see in the area. Importantly, and this is the position that I'd like to stress that WCC's took, is we're not being NIMBY about this. We aren't saying, don't build it, we don't want this, don't build it in our backyard. We absolutely understand that Milton Keynes was designed to expand, and we have known that this area will be built on and developed for some time. What we're saying is, let's make sure that we build it in absolutely the right way, so that the correct grid roads go in, the correct facilities, green spaces, the fact that the grid roads should have underpasses, because the current proposals state no underpasses. They want people to come and dance in the traffic and run across grid roads, which to us seems completely crazy. And we're also talking about keeping the density proportional. So some areas of the plan would feature 6-story tall buildings opposite the railway line, directly opposite 2-story buildings on our side. Whereas we're saying it should be phased. It should go sort of 2, 3, 4, 5-story building, or not above 4. And the density, so in Walton area, for instance, we enjoy what we call 35 dwellings per hectare, or DPH. So that's sort of nice laid-back housing, not on top of each other. There are areas in southeast Milton Keynes where they're proposing 100 DPH. So by comparison, if you've been up to Old Wolverton is around 85. So we're talking completely densely packed, tall buildings, which we don't particularly feel are in the keeping of the spirit of Milton Keynes, especially when the proposals also state they're not going to put parking spaces in for these densely packed houses either. So you could end up with this sort of nightmare next door, which isn't fair on our new residents and our new neighbours to be, but it also creates a spill across effect in terms of facilities, traffic and other utilities into our area. So if we make sure that we're responding and we're shaping this right for our new neighbours, that's the right thing to do, the responsible thing to do. But it also helps us make sure that we minimise the impact on Walton residents and we take care of things over here. If you haven't seen the proposals, please come and have a look at our website. Everything you need to know is on there if you haven't responded. There's a series of videos, there's a whole series of documents. And you'll also find a very, very simple way that's coming through your door where you are able to sign off on the document with some comments that we've put in there and send that back to Milton Keynes. The deadline for doing so is the 19th of April. So if you haven't done it already, when you get to this weekend, get 5 minutes, just go and do it this weekend. And everyone you see between now and the 19th of April, let them know what's going on and encourage them to respond as well, please.
That's great. Thank you very much, Adam. Okay, the next item is regarding demand responsive transport. And this is the introduction by Milton Keynes Council of a different system. So the subsidised bus services have now ceased to exist and have been replaced by on-demand minibus type transport, which is a totally new concept for Milton Keynes, but it's something that has operated in other towns around the country already. That came into effect over the last week or so. And I think we have Councillor David Newland, who's going to talk about this.
Yes, DRT, or MK Connect as it's going to be called, came in on 1st of April, although they did a trial run on the number 28 service last year due to the outbreak of COVID. It replaces quite a number of bus services that have been cancelled, like the 301, 23, 30, 31, 37. In our area, it's the 9, the 17, 24, 28 and 80. So all those bus services have now been replaced by this DRT service. And for people in Wavenham Gate will be affected the most because the number 9 went through your route and it now doesn't go there. So you have to use the DRT. You have to have an account and you have to either book through a app or ring up and book it through the phone. It's basically going to be charged at £3.50 for peak hours, which is 7 to 9, and out of peak hours it's £2.50. It's also worth bearing in mind that if you have to ring up and you cancel it, you will be charged £2, and if you don't turn up to the bus service, you'll be charged £2.50 as well for the service. They say that you will be picked up 15 minutes from a central location, which will be primarily bus stops or on the nearest corner to you. And obviously during this COVID crisis, it will only have 2 to 3 people on each minibus there, but they can't guarantee what time you'll get to your destination. It's not quite as good as that, but if you want to go from, say, Wavendon Gate to the city centre, it will take you there, and you won't have to change to an Arriva bus. They say with their smart system that they can distinguish where you are, and you will always be offered the most viable service that is near to you. So if you live near to a number 8 route, they will always direct you to there. But if you're in Old Farm Park and you want to get to Woburn Sands, which is not served by any bus routes, you will have to get the DRT buses. So they will pick disabled people up from their houses, and they are still honouring the concessionary bus fares, which will kick in from about 9:30 onwards. You can't get any concessionary fares or fare reductions in the peak hours to it, and you can only ring up about 15 minutes before your journey is due to take it. What else is there to say? One of the main concerns that the Walton Council is they are not doing any concessionary fares, so there's no weekly ticket or no monthly ticket. So if you're someone that works in the city centre and needs to take the bus, it's going to cost you £3.50 each trip. So you're going to be paying, was it £4.80 on an Arriva day ticket, whereas you're going to be paying £7 on the DRT service. So those are the basics of it. You can use the MK Move card to pay if you haven't got a bank account, or you can't do that. Well, you can buy these cards at selected points. Woburn Sands, I think, have got one in there, and there's ones at the railway stations. So once you buy these Move cards, you can use them as like a card. You can top them up, and you can pay. Certain bus stops will have a little black tower where you can buy the tickets from there as well. But it's certainly early days for the service, and they say they will review it after 6 months to see whether they're going to introduce concessionary fares or treat the service. So, and they do say that they can upscale the demand of the vehicles pending what uses it has to it.
David, we'll certainly be keeping an eye on the quality of service offered, and we'll make representations to Milton Keynes Council and the company concerned if service falls short of expectation. That's an interesting change. Okay, the next item is regarding our neighbourhood plan. So if you recall, this was in 2016, I believe, we created a neighbourhood plan that set out the way that we wanted our area to be developed, areas we wanted to be protected, green spaces, etc., quality of buildings, location, and all these good things to at least control, to have some control at least over what gets built, and not just leave it to the whims of developers and planners to determine. And this document would become a statutory document that would need to be consulted as part of any development application. As with all these types of documents, they need to be updated on a regular basis, and the time has come now that we've decided to refresh it. And for that purpose, we've assembled a team led by one of our prominent residents, Stuart Copeland, who's on the call tonight, and is going to talk you through what's been happening and and what the plans are to deliver that new neighbourhood plan. Go ahead, Stuart.
Thanks, Mario. There'll be an article coming out in the next newsletter, which will provide some detail, but also all of the detail of the current plans on the Community Council website. Just a bit of by way of introduction. So, thanks, Mario, for calling me a prominent resident. I'm a long-standing resident, and I love this area. And I've been lived here since 1992, but I think throughout the last 12 months, I've really appreciated how well this area was planned. Walking miles, cycling miles into current areas and new areas, and it's been really valuable for this neighbourhood plan refresh. It was actually 2013, end of 2013, when we kicked off the first exercise, and because it was the first exercise for us, but also for the country. So your neighbourhood plans were really being started for the first time ever. So it took quite some time. So it was, as Mario said, it was the end of 2016 when we completed it, and it was January 2017 when it was adopted. At a fairly high level, there are 19 planning policies in it, and they guide development in this area. Now, the neighbourhood plan sits at the bottom of a three-tier system of planning. So for those of you who have been involved in any appeals or anything like that, we have our neighbourhood plan. Sitting above that is the local plan, or Plan MK, and then sitting above that is the national policy planning policy framework. So the neighbourhood plan has to comply with those things, but it does have a fair amount of power. It also fills in the gaps between some of the more high-level plans that you would have, where an area is allocated for a certain number of houses. We through the neighbourhood plan, we can talk about exactly how they need to look and feel and fit in with the rest of the area. So that's what we did. Again, Mario indicated, and Adam's piece also indicates why we want to refresh it. So two reasons. One is the new developments, and so when we did it last time, the Oxford-Cambridge arc hadn't even been talked about. The East-West Rail project hadn't really been started, and the South-East MK development it was nowhere near being allocated at all. So what we need to do is to make sure that our plan reflects changes that those developments will affect, how they will affect us. And then the second reason, unfortunately, this makes me fairly grumpy every time I talk about it, is the Hindhead Knoll case, where Milton Keynes Council chose to change the density of the Hindhead Knoll site without consultation. I won't go into any more detail. You would have seen all the press and all that sort of stuff about it, but we need to be in a position where we have the latest plan, so that we get to trump previous plans and are in control of our own destiny. So that's really the background. Our objectives for the plan, forgive me for reading these through, but as I said, we need to make sure the neighbourhood plan is current. We need to make sure that the current neighbourhood plan lines up with Plan MK, and it does pretty much, except the area of Hindhead Knoll, but that's a different story. There are some policies in there which relate to land which has now been built for the retirement home. That's pretty much built now, so we can take that policy out. We'll also be seeking up-to-date resident feedback through a process of consultation in the summer. We need to reconcile the plan to some of the new national policies. So there's actually some quite good stuff around biodiversity and the ability to be able to protect green spaces. And as I said earlier, we also need to make sure it reflects East-West Rail, Oxford-Cambridge arc, and South-East MK. We have an indicative detailed plan. We're looking to complete the work by summer. There'll be a 6-week consultation period late summer. And depending on the scale of the changes we make, we may have to have another referendum, which is where we'll really draw out. So we'll be pushing hard to make sure we get as many people to vote as possible. It may be that we don't, but we don't know the answer to that question yet. I guess the final point is, how can you help? The working group has been established, as Mario said, but we're always looking for volunteers. There is an amount of effort, as you might imagine, on this, but it's also useful to get people's views and opinions. We will be keeping you up to date as we go through this process, but our target is to have the thing complete by the end of this year. I think that probably concludes an update. Obviously, if you've got any questions, then please shout in the time-honoured tradition of a Zoom call. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stuart. Does anyone have any questions for Stuart on this matter? So please raise your hands.
Yes, please. Can I ask a question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, my name's Leslie. I live in Walton Park. I wonder how the new development is going on next to Walton Grange. It's been very quiet and I've not known any sort of information with that. Is that going ahead, and what's the timeline for that? Thank you.
We have covered that. It features as part of the adjustment we've got for that area, because that area is in the neighbourhood plan, but I'm not quite sure on timeline. I think it's got outline planning. I don't know if Dan can remember that.
Yeah, the area does have outline planning permission on it, and I think they're in the process of working through some of the more detailed stuff regarding access to the site. But Leslie, if you want to send me an email, I'll find the latest information about what's going on that site and send it through to you. It's not something I know exactly where we are at the moment.
Thank you, because again, we don't have an underpass to the OU at all, so we can do it with the cycle, the red road, but that's about it, I think, isn't it? Yeah. Underneath. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Good. Okay, so any other questions, please raise your hand. All right, okay, but none other questions. Thank you, Stuart. And the fourth item we have on our agenda is to do with community facilities, and these relate to public buildings. So we have a number of those in our area, such as the Brownswood field, which we took over as Walton Community Council. We took over that field from Milton Keynes Council, so it's now in our ownership. As you may have noticed, we can't fail to notice, those of you in that area, we did develop it by adding a new play area and a new multi-games enclosure and an outdoor gym site. So we've done a few things there and kept the pitch to a very high standard. And what is now happening is that Milton Keynes Council, generally across the whole of our town, is looking to divest itself of other community assets. So within our parish, we have Britton Grove, which is a hall in Old Farm Park. We have Heronsbrook Meeting Place. We also have Wavendon Gate Pavilion and Walnut Tree Pavilion. And the one I want to talk about specifically is Walnut Tree Pavilion, for which we have been having discussions with MKC on a possible takeover, and we're at the stage now where we have agreed that we will take it over. Decisions being made, and we will be expecting contributions from Milton Keynes Council to help us do some basic repairs to the building, and then after that it will be in our ownership and we can do further things with it, improve it and build it up to a standard whereby it can be of more use to our community, not just as a sports pavilion, but for other small scale activities, because it is a building that's been underused and basically almost abandoned in the state that we saw it in. But we have great hope that that building will become a good asset for our community. And of course, we will within our ownership, protected from any potential development, because there's quite a bit of land, as you can imagine, in the sports field that is adjacent to the pavilion, and we certainly would not want to see that developed. And within our ownership, then we can certainly say that it will never be developed because we would not allow it. So that belongs to us, the community. There's another site which is quite a focal point within our community, and that is Hindhead Knoll. You may have come along to some of our events over the last few years and seen how good that area is for those sorts of things. And we have put in an expression of interest to Milton Keynes Council, again, to take that over into our ownership. So seeing that all around that particular location there have been developments, the last thing we would want is a threat to such an important focal point asset in our area. So that's where we are with those two assets. As I say, I'm sure that in the future discussions will be had about the remaining assets, and we will take each one on its own merit and decide whether or not we would want to commit to taking those on. So that's where we are with the assets. Any questions on those, please? Okay, so thank you for that. Right, so over to you, the residents who have attended. We have a number of questions that were put to us in advance. And what we'll do is, if the person who put the question to us is on this call and would want to ask the question, please feel free. The first one is about children's play areas. Is there someone interested in knowing about those?
This question came from Nicole Drummond, if Nicole is here.
Nicole. I can see a Nicole, different surname.
Chair, as the question's been submitted, it might be worth just reading out what the question is, and
yes,
then people can have an opportunity to discuss it if they wish.
Yeah, of course. So the question is, what are the plans to refresh the children's play areas, especially in Caldecott? So, as you know, over the last few years, we've had excuse me, a rolling plan of children's play area refresh projects, and we have been quite active in delivering those. For Caldecott, I guess, David, is that on the plan for the moment, or is it on the next round?
Well, we had some play areas to refurbish last year, but due to the COVID crisis, they've been delayed to this year. Yes, we have the Caldecott area play area is due to have some work on it. It's mainly landscaping and things like that. We're still working up the exact plan. We also carried over Lamb Lane and Gateway and Sullivan Crescent. Sullivan Crescent was the one that we consulted the residents, and we got a match funding bid from Milton Keynes Council, of which we will be implementing that plan as soon as the funding comes from Milton Keynes Council. The Gateway Lane one is in Caldecott. That's the one we're still working at the final details, and the Lamb Lane one we're also working at as well, but we aim to do those this year. And we've got 3 other ones on our list as well that we're working up. Some proposals, Tansman Lane one, and there's 2 others I can't quite think of the name at the moment. But we have got a extensive plan, a rolling plan to continually invest in our play areas, not just updating them, but our warden goes around once a month to checking them on a regular basis for any defects on top of the statutory ones that Milton Keynes Council are doing. You will also see that over the past year or so, we have actually been cutting back a lot of the landscaping around these play areas to try and open them up. The one you'll probably be more aware of is the one near Walnut Tree Pavilion, the one at the back there. There used to be all the bushes and trees, and it was quite surrounded, and we opened it up, and now the people that use that feel a lot safer. So we aim to be doing more of that around the parish to identify areas that we think could benefit from the extra maintenance on them.
Thank you, David. Okay, the next question was regarding car parking, always a favourite, especially within the Caldecott area. And particularly at this point in time, the issue with the Red Bull car park. So car park near to Brick Hill Station, that was previously a small free of charge car park. The land was taken over by Red Bull, purchased from Milton Keynes Council, and we were hoping that Red Bull were going to continue to offer free of charge parking, and it would be a benefit to our community in going from 30 spaces to 100 spaces, all free of charge. That would have alleviated some of the issues with parking around Caldecott. And sadly, they've decided that they're going to charge for parking in that. So no longer is it a free car park, it is a public car park, but nevertheless it will be chargeable. Representations have been made by us, by our ward councillor, Councillor David Hopkins is on the call today, and there are meetings going on between all the parties, Milton Keynes Council and Red Bull, to try and come up with a solution to this difficult situation. I don't know, David Hopkins, rather, would you like to add anything to that?
No, Chairman, I think you've covered it all very well. It's extremely disappointing, and fingers were being pointed by Red Bull back at Milton Keynes Council and by Milton Keynes Council back at Red Bull. So the whole thing's been most unedifying. The fundamental issue is we had 30 odd spaces of the previous car park, which we've now lost. Red Bull gave undertakings in public meetings that they would be providing community car parking free of charge. And to some extent, on that basis, they got their planning permissions. So there is an ongoing negotiation between a senior director at Milton Keynes Council, a gentleman called Stuart Profit, and a representative of Red Bull. And they're meeting again towards the end of this week. We should have an update next week. And I keep you, Chairman, and the manager of the Parish Council, the Community Council, fully informed on a regular, ongoing basis. But this does need to be.
So David, we've lost the connection. Okay, I think everyone's got the gist of that. Apologies for that. We seem to have a bad line, David.
Allow this situation because it's farcical there.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, David.
Charging is £8, and it's not. Yeah.
David, we've lost your connection.
If you could hear me, I'll leave it at that. Mario.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for your contribution on that. Appreciated. So yeah, we'll keep everyone informed as that situation hopefully develops towards a solution. Caldecott parking in general, do we have any residents from Caldecott here tonight? Anyone like to comment on how the residents parking scheme is going?
If I may, Chair, from YouTube, we have a question regarding the residents parking scheme, asking when are the double yellow lines that were shown to residents as part of the parking scheme in Caldecott going to be introduced?
A very good question. I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that, but we can certainly go and find out. If those were on the plans as part of the scheme, then yes, they should have been delivered. And I'm surprised that they're not there already. So yeah, we'll take that away and find out the answer. Okay. Anyone else from Caldecott? Well, we have our councillor in Caldecott, Hussein. Maybe you'd like to give us a little bit of feedback.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just wanted to add a little bit, probably we have made quite a bit of impact, and there is quite a bit of improvement from where we started, but certainly there is area for improvement, and perhaps enforcement needs to be a little bit more regular, and we have raised that before and is being taken into consideration. The issue around the business park obviously is not resolved, and it still needs attention, and obviously from the Red Bull car park loss that we have is not going to help the issue. And the new ownership, I believe that they haven't taken the number of increased options that we gave planning consent by Milton Keynes Council hasn't been implemented. So the issue continues, and I have raised some of those and some evidence of this issue continuing, in and around the business park especially, which is been during the lockdown, let alone when hopefully things goes back to normal and more people would be taking work in the premises, and probably we need to continue and try to resolve this issue, hopefully to better benefiting our residents, and continue a bit of enforcement that the cars are not being parked in and around the residential areas. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sam. Okay. Continuing on the theme of car parks, this time it's an issue with inappropriate behaviour in car parks. It's a question regarding drug taking and drug dealing and general antisocial behaviour in Caldecott's car parks. That question was raised. I'm not sure that how much we can do about it as a parish council, other than to press the police to apply more resources and get our PCSO to patrol more regularly in that area. But it's something where the advice is always, if there is a problem, the more times we ring up and hassle the police over it, that the numbers of complaints will actually drive the police to step up their activities in a particular area. So I don't know if the resident who posed this question is on the call tonight to give us a bit more information about what exactly is happening.
If I may add, Chair, sorry, I assume that the car parks that are being questioned is the park trust areas within the Caldecott, that the parking is available freely to member public, and I assume that is normally with the issue that is being raised is during the night rather than any other time, and I personally am not very familiar with the detail of this issue, and I haven't personally encountered any issue as such, but I have heard from other residents that there are possibility of this issue existing.
Well, what we can do is make representations to the police and keep encouraging them to step up their activities to keep an eye on these places. But we do encourage people to report individually, directly to the police, not on Facebook. I know people tend to post a lot of things on Facebook, but that doesn't achieve anything. It's actual reports and formal reports to the police that will drive them into action. Right. Next question was about speed control on local roads. Some residents have reported. So was there a question from somebody?
No, I'm the instigator of that one. It's Rodney, not Rachel, who is my wife.
Okay. Hi, Rodney. Welcome.
Good evening. Well, as a very senior citizen in the 80s, I have a lot of time sitting at home, and in fact, we live in a house on a crescent, and it seems that crescents are used as racetracks. And I just noticed cars zooming past. I suppose you can say it's an ageist remark, really. But I know somebody put down the wires across the road and did an analysis some little while ago, but it was during one of the lockdown periods. So you weren't going to get a true reading. But I'm just conscious that cars drive very quickly up here. Not only cars, vans, whatever. And okay, we haven't had an accident yet, but who knows? But as I say, it could be an ageist thing. Perhaps people like driving quickly around.
No, not at all. No, I think it's inappropriate to be driving at speed around our estate roads. They are not wide enough for that, and there are cars parked, and there could be children playing. So you're absolutely right. It's not something that we would want to see happening. And what I would say is that some areas could well be converted to 20-mile-an-hour zones. So if you think that is a major problem in your area, in your road, crescent, then getting together with the residents of that road and putting in a request for a 20-mile-an-hour zone could well be the answer.
Yeah.
I'm not a great fan of putting in more speed bumps because we've got enough of those, and our cars are getting damaged enough by them. But certainly to moderate speed within those small estate roads would be something that we could do. I know that there are plans for certain areas, 20-mile-an-hour zones already.
Right.
If I may add, Chair, as what I've just very recently experienced myself, what I tend to see probably, you're very right, it is not anything to do with age or area. Perhaps it should be of concern of everybody, the public safety, and there is a speed limit for a specific reason and safety in mind. Unfortunately, sometimes when a route is being used as a kind of shortcut or a commuting area, and then that is used as going a bit faster, and that unfortunately we do experience that in Caldecott from the business park, and just around 5:30, I experienced it myself. I was just collecting some of the bins from outside, and it's just being used, and they just speed up. I'm understanding they might be going home, they might be a bit younger, and they don't see probably the danger that that residents might feel. But I assume that issue is less of the residents causing it, and then if somebody is using it as a shortcut to a state.
Thanks for that. Can I just introduce?
Yeah, just a quick one.
Sure. Go ahead, Jamie. We have a frozen screen there.
Jamie Tanagnini, hear me?
You can now. Go ahead.
Just a quick one. I know where Rodney lives. It's in Boyce Crescent in Old Farm Park. And I do know that is in line to have a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit introduced,
right,
which means that they will actually do some changes to the road that will not allow cars to be speeding at the rate that they are at the moment. At the moment, Boyce Crescent is one road that invites speed. And for information, anybody that sees the black tubes on the road, they measure two things. They measure quantity and they measure speed. So going through, they were certainly measuring high speeds going through. So that lockdown actually probably in coming up with higher speeds than usual because there was no traffic.
That's very good. So Rodney has good news.
Yeah, we did have bumps when we moved here in '97. The road was full of bumps, which did slow the traffic down. But that was builders' bumps.
All right. Leftover rubble.
Yeah, right.
So,
Right.
so I guess, as Jamie has said, there will be other measures, hopefully not bumps, but
No, no.
constraints in the lanes. So one lane rather than two, slow traffic down, perhaps. So that's going to happen fairly soon. Can I just introduce our council manager, Leslie Sun? She has a comment to make on the speed reduction. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Boyce Crescent specifically, the program, the Milton Keynes Council put that in its capital program next year. So that's when the works will start. 20-mile-per-hour limits.
I'll have to hang on.
Yeah, it's in next year's program. Yeah.
Yes, but when you get to 82, you can't guarantee you next year.
We'll tell them to hurry up then, won't we?
Yeah.
We'll put a request in for that.
Is that next year, as in the coming financial year, Leslie, from starting this month, or is it next year, as in next financial year?
I think it's next financial year. Yes. Yeah.
20.
Yeah.
22, 23. Okay. All right. That was speed thought. So the last question we had was regarding damage to our verges.
Me again. That's me again.
Okay.
Coming from London and seeing how areas disintegrate from the original standard, I don't want Milton Keynes accepting a lowering of standards, and these verges seem to just be accepted now and will get progressively worse. It just disappoints me that areas can be brought down because of this, but it worries me that the owners of the people of the houses that have got this in front of them don't seem to worry. So perhaps they accept that this is the standard we should work to. I don't know.
Well, no, it's not something that we accept, and we've been quite vocal regarding the condition of verges. And I think that probably the worst causes of verge damage are the buses.
Yes, yeah.
They're too big to swing around the corners and tend to cut them. Other commercial vehicles and so on.
Well, I blame the planners for making the roads quite so narrow that in '97 the buses were only about 30 feet long. So you know, I don't blame the buses for going over the edge, but you know, they are the cause of it in a lot of cases. Yes. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, with the replacement of buses by demand responsive transport, there will be smaller vehicles moving around our state roads.
Yeah.
So I think part of that problem may be solved by that, but I guess that stopping people parking on verges could be quite difficult.
It will be.
And there are still some commercial vehicles that we know park on verges on a permanent basis, and it's quite difficult to know what to do with them. I think we've investigated in the past putting up measures such as bollards and
who is it?
Fences, but the issue we have there is that I think the rules on putting up such defences means that you've got to actually put them by a certain distance away from the curb, which kind of defeats the object of trying to protect the verge, because they would still have space to park on there. but it's something that's we talked about and we're still trying to grapple with. And I know that some very bad areas, for example, just adjacent to the Tesco store in Walnut Tree, which is an eyesore.
But who puts down the rocks which do deter people from going over? Who provides those rocks?
That's a very good question. I know that those have been put down in some places. I know there are rocks outside the Britton Grove Tesco. I would imagine Tesco themselves being criticised may have put them down, but we could find out.
Yeah, no, it seems a good deterrent, but I don't necessarily agree with it. But it deters, as say, from driving on there. But if we put down rocks outside here and someone tripped over them, would I be then fine? I don't know, health and safety and all the rest of it.
It's something we could investigate and inquire as to who owns the rocks outside Britton Grove Tesco, for example. That may give us a clue, and then find out whether that's legal and whether any. Because I know that there are other places I've seen outside private residences also with rocks.
Yeah.
But it's something that we should clarify before encouraging people to go out and put rocks there.
And at the garden centres, I know that these rocks are very expensive.
Yes.
Right. I rest my case.
Thank you for that question. Very, very important point. So that was the end of the questions submitted in advance. Does anyone have any questions in addition? I see some hands up. I'll try and take them in sequence. Claire, it's right. Right, have I got them in the right sequence here?
It's Adam, followed by Claire, followed by Malcolm.
Adam, yeah, go ahead, Adam.
Thanks very much, Chair. This might help about the parking on verges. Any day now, there's been a government national consultation about parking on verges, weirdly enough, and it's due to deliver its findings any day now. The options are to shift enforcement from the police down to local authorities, which would allow local authorities to take more direct action against parking on verges. There will be options on having areas or designated roads in the same way that we designate a road a 20 zone as a do not park on the verge zone. And there's even a third, let's call it a nuclear option on the table, as in London, where in London, parking on verges is completely forbidden entirely. So that could be introduced nationally. I don't think that would be introduced nationally because that would cause pretty much chaos everywhere. But having the ability to be able to designate do not park on the verge roads and then enforce it through the local authority, say through Milton Keynes Council, let's just see what that the recommendations come back on a national level, but that should help with that.
Good.
Thanks, Adam. Okay, Claire, you had your hand up previously.
I did. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, lovely. It's my first time and I'm not very good on Zoom, so I just wanted to double check. I just wanted to just touch really on the point about people parking on grass verges, and there are some very hot spots in Walnut Tree where I live, where it's actually the residents that are parking up on down in Tatling Grove. There was an incident not that long ago where there was a large amount of household items that were dumped on the beautiful grass verge. People have now started parking on that grass verge. And I do sometimes think, and I know that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I might be a bit too much fluffy fairy here, but about taking pride about in our community. And you know, I understand the bin men have to get around these corners and it's not always easy, but I do think sometimes that with the residents, it's about, you know, is it really necessary for you to park your 4x4 on top of that beautiful piece of greenery that we have in Walnut Tree? And do you not actually care about the damage that you're now causing? I mean, there are some really quite nasty areas of Walnut Tree which have just been dug up now by these vehicles. And I don't know whether, you know, whether we need to be a little bit more kind of community based about taking pride in terms of and taking ownership for the actual land that we have in these areas for ourselves. So I just wanted to put that one out there, really. It might be a bit too fairy for this meeting, but I don't know, I just kind of feel that as I walk around Walnut Tree, there are so many beautiful places that I enjoy walking by, and there's others that just seem to just kind of take the mickey a bit. So
you're quite right, and we all feel that way. We do want to take pride in our surroundings and keep it looking tidy, and verges being verges rather than rotted bits of earth. So anything we can do to stop people parking on there, we will try and do within our powers. But as Adam said, legislation may be changing, powers may be coming down to local councils to enforce, and maybe then we'll have more of an opportunity to tackle this issue because it's not something that the police are interested in dealing with. So, but it also means that people within a particular street need to, if possible, if I'm not encouraging confrontations with neighbours, but some comments about parking on verges might be appropriate, especially where damage is constant and quite serious. But we will do our best to tackle the issue within our powers. Failing that, we will no doubt have to think about other solutions, and rather than having grass verges, we could end up with lots of concrete, which is not ideal. But in some instances where corners are so tight and there's no chance of stopping traffic going over them, then this is a potential solution, albeit a very expensive one. And we have looked at some of those instances, and for the moment, we've not made the decision to invest in that kind of solution. As I said earlier, putting bollards up is fraught with problems as well, health and safety and other restrictions that are applied by Milton Keynes Council. Okay, so thank you for that question. We go on to next question from Malcolm.
Lichfield Down, the same thing. Lichfield Down is the worst road for having the verges carved up, and my experience is it's mostly builders, and outside the school, Herons Brook School, the verge there, just an absolute nightmare. The parents that go, I don't think it's people that live in Walnut Tree that are causing the problem. I've spoken to the postman, for instance, parking in Lichfield Down, 2 wheels on the grass, and he didn't see a problem, but he did apologise, and he hasn't done it since. And I said to him, look at the mess you've just made pulling on here. And he was oblivious. And I don't think people think, wherever there's a wide verge, if there's a builder's van, they'll park on the grass because it's keeping them out of the road. And as regard the bricks, we had this at the Have Your Say meetings with the PCSOs, and if a car gets damaged, if you're the person who put them there, you're liable. So I'm not sure what the answer is, but it just does make a terrible mess. We get it here in Hopcliffe Bray. We got a wide verge opposite us by the oak tree. The houses opposite, they've had builders after builders. They're all houses that have been sold to be let, and they come and renovate them. And for months and months and months, all the builders parking on the grass. It's just so wet, they just sink straight in, and then they drive away because they don't have to live here. So I rest my case.
Thanks, Malcolm. I appreciate your being public spirited and having words with people like the postman. At least that that's what we would encourage, some polite conversation with people who do that where possible. Okay, other questions? So remind you that this is your meeting, and that please feel free to ask whatever you like of us, comments or questions, observations, anything that you would want us to hear about. So is that Lilibet? You got your hand up and you're off mute.
Yeah, just me. Sorry, I'm a bit of a technophobe. Hello, Mario. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Some questions, some might have been covered already, maybe vaguely, briefly. Firstly, is one of bins, litter bins. We don't seem to have that many in Wavendon Gate, and we would like one, please, in Lamb Lane, if at all possible. I hope this is the right forum to ask for that, but I don't know where else. Yep. And also, is there any chance of some kind of memorial bench, or like a poppy bench or something like that, to be installed in and around our area at some point? The question was asked by a resident, and I'm at off. They would like to see it. Obviously, I am Wavendon Gate centric, so it is Wavendon Gate, by the cricket pavilion, if at all possible. That is certainly something provoked our interest. That's probably not the right word, but there you go. Because it is something that is quite dear to us, actually. We go to the memorial every year, and all of that entails. I think it would only be right and proper to have something like that in our area at somewhere, because our nearest one is Woburn Sands, something like that. The next thing, there is another thing. Could we thank you for the bollards, whoever installed quickly the bollards at the cricket pavilion last summer. Super job. There's just one short. One or two short.
We'll ask Adam to comment on that, because he was instrumental in getting those bollards put in.
Yeah, super job, Adam. The only thing is there's a slight gap allowing ingress of cars onto the field, which will need at some point. Is that something that you can do at all?
It's done. We've worked with Milton Keynes Council to get an additional 2 wooden bollards placed forward of where it stopped towards the tree line against Isaacson Drive path, because we noticed absolutely you could bump a car up and 45 degree it on, whereas now anyone that was trying to say bring a caravan on would have to try and do it at 90 degrees, which you just cannot do. The caravan would wedge, so there's no chance of travellers or larger vans or whatever getting up onto there. But we noticed that we were short by 2 or 3 bollards, and Milton Keynes Council worked with us to get 2 additional bollards in place. We know it's done because both me and Leslie Davis, who's our operations manager, double checked on it visually today and counted them.
Oh, counted. Okay, right. Well, excellent.
It's important.
We don't want a repeat of last year's events on that cricket pitch.
Absolutely not. And would this be the right forum to address the talking of Hindhead Knoll and your attempts to adopt that? That'd be fabulous. The tree, the oak tree, how far are we on from getting that preserved? The tree preservation order on that.
We have sorry, go ahead.
Oh. And secondly, with the flats being built, obviously higher density than we thought on Hindhead Knoll, so more people, more flats, wouldn't people actually have a problem or events that Knoll should tip. That's something that you would consider or have considered.
Sorry, could you repeat that last point, because your line cut out?
It's been like this light, like a fulcrum. I wasn't sure if it was me or if it was you. It's obviously me. Oh.
You have
How much did you get?
none of the second point, I'm afraid. So you could repeat that, that'd be useful.
All right. The second point was possible complaints from residents around the Hindhead Knoll should we adopt it into the WCC. Did you get that?
Sorry,
Is anybody hearing me?
Yes, I heard that. I'm not sure I quite understood it. It's complaints about.
Oh right. So well, we have quite a few events on Hindhead Knoll, very successful, being the film nights, etc., etc. So I'm just thinking ahead and thinking we have nearer residents now, or we will have once the flats. In fact, they're overlooking the park. So wouldn't we? Has that been considered? Noise
So you mean that
it might put a kibosh on you adopting that area. That's all.
I don't think it would stop us adopting the area. I think perhaps your concern is about would the new residents on both sides of Hindhead Knoll complain about noise from events that we might want to hold on there. I wouldn't have thought so, because we're very considerate in the timing of these events, and we're not there like every week running shows. So I wouldn't have thought that they would lodge any complaints and stop us making use of that area, as I said before, as a very important focal point for our community. I would imagine they'd even encourage it. So you've got people moving in at some point into the retirement flats, and equally on the other side eventually those new residents. I can't see why they would object. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it's an additional facility for them. It's a point of interest.
It was just a comment that somebody asked me to ask. That's all.
Yeah, so it's a good point. But we hope that they will appreciate that it's a facility and an asset to have in front of their homes. If your earlier point about the tree, we have our expert tree hugger who was best to protect that wonderful oak and put a fence around it and tried to, totally stopped the guys with the chainsaws from taking too much off it. And Leslie, do you want to sort of come in and tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. Well, I was willing to chain myself to it, but I didn't need to do that or go that far. But currently there's a root protection order on that tree, but that only protects it whilst the building is taking place. So we were concerned about the long-term future of that tree, and so we applied for a tree preservation order. So Milton Keynes Council, in effect, they have to apply for the order. They apply for it from themselves. Seems a bit ridiculous, but that's what they need to do. But having had some discussions with the landscape officer at Milton Keynes Council, we've established that there are grounds for protection. And so that will now need to go through a certain process, and it's a decision-making process. And as we know, these things don't go very quickly, but we'll just be I'll try to keep everybody up to date. I'll put things on social media so that people know what's happening with that. But there are definite grounds, and so a process has at least commenced.
Thanks, Leslie. Right, we have another hand up, Claire.
Mary, I was just going to interrupt for 1 second, sorry, Chair, to bring your attention to the chat as well. There has been a couple of information and question which Adam has already answered, but because we are live streaming, that might not be available to everybody else. So I don't know if you wanted to read it and read the answer.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye on the chat. I'm going to bring them up in as and when we get the chance. I'll bring up all the chat questions. There's ones coming in off YouTube as well, so I'll bring those up.
That's great, thank you.
Okay, we'll do that in a moment. So Claire, you had your hand up, or was that just left up?
No. It's a new hand up. I'm new to all of this, so were we caught by surprise about the oak tree and our application to protect it? And that isn't a criticism, because I think you guys do an amazing job. I'm just trying to understand how we've ended up in this situation where I've walked past that site and the roots being dug up. I'm no expert, but they could be the oak tree roots that have been dug up. So I'm just trying to understand, please. Were we caught by surprise? Is this something that we can learn from? Because I'm not the only resident who's very concerned that this might be too late for this oak tree, having seen what happened in the city centre. So if I could just be educated a little bit more, please, in terms of how we got to this situation, I'd really appreciate it.
I can come in on that if you like, Chair.
Yeah, please go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, hi Claire. Were we taken by surprise? No, protecting the tree was talked about in the original consultations. The difference is the tree has been protected through construction. As Leslie said before, there's a root protection order and a crown protection order on the tree during the construction phase, and the whole foundation setup of that building, of the flats, is being designed to go around the roots of that tree, and will not allow. They are not allowed to take out any roots bigger than, I think it's 4 centimeters. Possibly they can take out roots smaller than that, but the whole foundations have been done on piles that'll be drilled 16 meters into the ground around the roots of that tree, and they have to scan the roots. They have to scan the roots of the tree in order to decide where the foundations of that building are actually going to be, because they haven't actually done that yet. And that's the work they're doing at the moment, which is to expose some of the roots and to radar scan the rest of the roots on the site, and then design the foundations of the building around the tree. The protection we're trying to get at the moment is to protect it after the building is finished, which it's never really needed to be protected before, because there's been nothing next to it, and it's been protected by sort of the statutory protections that are afforded to that kind of tree by the council anyway.
Okay, that's really helpful. I mean, I as a resident dog walker, walked past maybe a week and a half ago, and my heart sank when I saw these big chunky roots all on the ground. So it's I put my hands that they're doing what they've been told to do, and it's good. It's really good to know that kind of work has gone on behind the scenes to protect it. Because as I say, I'm coming into this brand new, and I'm a tree hugger, a bit like Leslie, and I was kind of like, what? So it's really, really useful to come along tonight and hear about all the work that's gone on behind the scenes. But I have to say, there were some pretty stonking roots that had been dug up about a week and a half ago, and they were on the side of where the oak tree was. So I just prayed that they are, if I'm allowed to say it, doing what they're meant to be doing. But I appreciate that explanation. Thank you.
There have also been a lot of other trees taken down on that site, which they'll be currently digging the roots up from as well, because they only cut down to a stump and they have to remove all those roots. So roots that you might be seeing may well be from other trees on the site.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. Thank you.
Chairman, could I just add something there, because I do have details of the site manager, and they did send a letter out to local residents, and you may not have got that, Claire, because I think they just sent it out to people just around Hindhead Knoll, but it did have the site manager's details on there. So you are welcome to contact the site manager anytime if you've got any concerns, and if you contact me, then I can give you those details if you want them.
Oh, no, I really appreciate that. I'm Boxbury Gardens, so it doesn't impact me directly. But as I say, I'm a resident dog walker. I think I see you, Leslie, around anyway. And you just noticed the goings on, I suppose, as a dog walker. So no, that's really helpful. If I've got any concerns in the future, I'll give you a shout, but I promise not to stalk you.
Very good. Okay, we have some hands up. Question from Marta. Please go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. My first time in here. Oh God, it's stressful. Hope you can hear me.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Right, so I've been a resident of Walnut Tree for 8 years now, and thank you very much to those who installed bollards in our cricket football pitch in Walnut Tree as well, and all the protection. It's fantastic after having a pretty nightmare summer last year. But again, I will be following Lilybeth. There is one more place that is potentially a place where people can get through. So I don't know if that's something that can be actioned. I did speak to the gentleman who was installing the bollards initially, whether there will be one or two in that place. And at that time, he unfortunately said that there won't be any, or he won't be installing any in that particular place. It's not necessarily next to the football pitch. It's, how to explain it to you? If you go from Waits Mill Lane, right before the underpass to Walton, there is like a grass, and then there is a bit of a space in between the fence of my property and the other bushes. And if you really try, you can probably use that opportunity to get into the football pitch in there. So that's number one. Thank you very much for sorting out the bushes around the play park. It's really fantastic to see that it's a bit safer, and especially when children are playing around, you can have a great view on that. So that's really good. The grass has grown now. It looks fantastic. However, is there any possibility of installing some kind of a bin for just general rubbish around the football pitch? I mean, it's something that is a daily occurrence at the minute. As you know, people go out more, they play more, and there is nowhere to throw rubbish. There is one bin next to the play park, for the children's play park, and it's pretty much constantly full. So anywhere, either in a car park or anywhere that people can throw the rubbish as well. There is a bin for dog poo as well, and very often I've noticed is used for the general rubbish as well. So just this really. Thank you very much.
Good points. Yeah, if there are any points at which the bollards around Walnut Tree Pavilion are not covering, then yes, we'll take a look at that and ask Milton Keynes Council to put them in. I don't know, maybe Leslie, could we look at getting the warden to go around and identify that area and make some notes and photographs and get those done in the same way that we've done with Wamington Gate Pavilion area. So I'm sure there is, it can't be that expensive to put in a couple of extra bollards, so we should try and get that done. The extra bin, this is an interesting one. We do encourage people who use the public areas to take their rubbish with them, and it's been said to us that if you do install a bin, it just attracts even more rubbish. But it's probably something that we should consider. Walnut Tree area, yes, it's as you say, there's a dog bin there, but there isn't a proper rubbish bin. And I think we'll put it on our agenda to have a look and discuss, see what can be done. I mean, these bins are installed and maintained by Milton Keynes Council, so we would have to make that request to them. But certainly we can do that on your behalf, see if we can get something put in place.
Thank you.
So we'll take that on, put it on our operations.
Nice one, Mario. Thanks, mate.
You're welcome. Okay, we have some more hands up. Neville, please go ahead. Neville, you're on mute.
Sorry, mate. Right, my dog's just barking. I just need to let him out. Am I all right to jump back in about 5 or 10 minutes?
Okay, right. We'll come back to you.
Cheers, mate. Janine, I'm fucking coming, lad. Sorry, mate.
Oh.
Not sure what happened there. We'll go to our next person with a hand up. Amy, please go ahead.
Hi. I just wanted to, myself and my neighbours have noticed that there's the piece of land by Twyford Lane. On Twyford Lane, it's the kind of triangle between Twyford Lane and the run into the Grid Road. We've noticed some surveyors looking at that area, and I don't know whether that's something that you guys can help us to know a little bit more about, or whether it would be something that I should refer to Stuart and the neighbourhood plan.
I was just about to say we should have that plot identified on the neighbourhood plan, and we will have made some comments as to what usage we would allow on of that land. Stuart, you have the neighbourhood plan handy to identify that particular plot?
I in a couple of seconds.
Yeah, so we'll give you a moment to do that. Amy, we'll come back to you. Is there any other question you have?
No, it's just kind of what the plan is for that, and obviously we'd be concerned about if it's housing, access, and traffic, increased traffic on Twyford Lane, because obviously it's quite a small lane, and it already has a high traffic volume that comes through. So yeah, just really concern from residents.
Yes, we have a few of those little patches of land that we've enjoyed as open space, but could be subject to some development in the future. But again, we'll look at what we have put into our neighbourhood plan and let you know, hopefully in this meeting. But if not, afterwards, we can certainly give that information to you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Amy. Going on to Bob, please go ahead.
Yes. I just wanted to raise a point that I've you know, when I've been walking around recently, I've been noticing that there's these canisters on the street. I didn't know what they were, so I googled it. What are these canisters on the street? And it said there's some nitrous oxide, and apparently youths they use them recreationally. They're very easy to buy. Apparently, you can get them on eBay and everything. But they're just all over. They're just all over, and it's just bloody disgraceful, if you ask me, that it's been allowed to get like this. And I just wondered if the council had anything that they could do to control this, because it's just not on seeing this what is essentially drug paraphernalia on the streets that our children are taking. You know, I'm frankly appalled at it.
Chair, can I answer that? I had an issue near where I work in Wilton Mill, where there was a big car park, and the same thing was happening. The youths have these nitrous oxide canisters, and they press it into a balloon, and then they smoke it. So it's a question that we will have to pass on to the police and get them, so they've got local knowledge of this going on. Unfortunately, it's going on all over Milton Keynes. When I spoke to Thames Valley Police about this matter, and the Wilton Greens Council, where they was, we arranged for an enforcement officer to go down and to actually put signs up. But you've really got to catch them in the act to do any real to sort the problem. They just go for any quiet corners or dark parts of car park. I appreciate that it is annoying, and we will, if possible, clear up any mess that's been made. So I think it's report the issue to us and report it to Thames Valley Police, so they've got actual knowledge of where these events are actually happening.
Thank you for that. I'll definitely do that. And I haven't I've only seen the canisters. I haven't seen any use doing it, but they're quite lucky because I would straight away be on the phone to the police and informing them of the situation. So I'm glad that there's going to be some cleaning as well, because you know, it's not nice to look at, and I think it kind of spurs them on seeing so many around. They kind of think, well, you know, we can do as we like. So yes, I'm glad that some action is being taken. Thank you. Happy about
You
that.
can go to Thames Valley Police website and you can go to our area and you can actually send local messages to the local policing team, and they assure us that all messages, information they get, they do act on, and it's just building up this information that enables them to take some action to it. Unfortunately, this is a crisis that's all across Milton Keynes, not just here.
Thank you for that information. Thank you.
If you let us know the location in particular, if there's a build-up of these canisters and you want us to come and clean them up, then we will do that as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. Jamie or Dan, did you have further comments to do with the canisters, or was it other points?
Yes, I do, Chair. So I've had dealings with the police with regards to these canisters as well, and the police reaction that I had was we are simply not interested in people that are using them because there's no legal remit for it. The canisters are legal because you can use them to make whipped cream or that sort of thing. Nitrous oxide in itself, I think that there hasn't been any deaths reported on it recently. It doesn't result in major problems like that. It just means that you're going to be depleted of vitamin B12, which will make you completely lethargic. That's why the government is not doing anything about it either. But funnily enough, the police has done somebody for dealing these canisters on school premises. So they can, if you're selling them as a legal sort of legal high, they will probably do something about that. But people doing them, I've caught them at Tesco's Extra at cost of coffee, 11 o'clock at night, filling up the balloons and breathing these things in. And the police was simply not interested in doing anything about it, even though there was CCTV evidence of what was going on. So good luck with reporting it to the police. Please do report it to the police because something has to be done to control the sale of these canisters. They are the new version of cigarette butts, in my personal opinion, in that they are not biodegradable. It is a waste of aluminium, and it affects wildlife.
Thanks for that, Jamie. Very disappointing to hear. I'm not going to lie. I expected more. Well, if that means that I have to take matters into my own hands, then so be it.
I just popped some additional information in the chat on this. So it is illegal to supply with intent for humans, but not illegal to own or possess. So what I'd suggest there, Bob, is you keep putting the push pin in the board with the police to say that you've got, because it will probably have other antisocial issues. So if you keep saying that you've got antisocial issues coming up with someone doing this, potentially supplying, then the police should be interested. And you keep putting that push pin in the map.
Okay. Dan, comments in relation to this or different subject?
It's a different subject, if I may, Chair. This is a question coming via the YouTube channel regarding there's a no U-turn in force now on the entrance into Caldicott across the grid road opposite the pub, turning into Manellan. Is it Manellan Grove at that point where it turns into? And it's asking whether we could petition to add a bollard island on the estate side of the junction, as now cars are crossing the junction and U-turning at the head of Manellan Grove to go to complete a U-turn back on the grid road. It's a question of whether we as a council can lobby to have something like that put in.
I think that we could lobby for it, yes. Yeah, we'll make a note of it and make inquiries with Milton Keynes Council, with the highways, and see if it's something they could do for us, if this causing a problem.
And if I may,
I'm sorry to interject, but I too have seen these kids doing these balloon nitrous stuff, and it's a bloody disgrace to do it in our town. I've seen it across the Milton Keynes area, but it's got to stop because it's a bloody disgrace. I'm sorry, but thank you.
Okay, Ronnie, thanks for your contribution. Let's say Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
And if I may also, this is a question that's been asked in the chat on here, which Adam has given an answer to, but if he can give an answer verbally as well on this, regarding, there's a new consultation open on East-West Rail, a non-statutory consultation, and it's a question of whether the council are planning to make a response to that consultation.
The answer is yes. Adam's already looked at the document, highlighted some points, and we will be discussing it and submitting a formal response to the consultation as Walton Community Council. So the answer is yes. We're aware and dealing with it. If I can come back to Mort, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mario. Evening, everybody.
Evening.
So yeah, my name's Mort. Just a little bit about me. My preferred pronouns are he, him. My preferred adjectives are fat and lazy, but that's by the by. Anyway, the main reason I wanted to kind of join this meeting today was I don't know if anybody else feels the same as me, but I've noticed that people are wandering around wearing far too colourful garments. 20 years ago, everybody just sort of wore nice plain coloured clothes. Now you're seeing people with purple onesies, all sorts. I mean, it's barely even springtime. Does anybody else share my frustrations in this?
Interesting question. Would anyone like to comment on that?
Is the question just for the lulls, or?
I don't think there's anything to lull about, because I profoundly believe in the freedom of expression. The 60s, the 70s, we were kicking back, we were smoking numbers, and we were wearing some very, very visually stimulating garments, and I don't think that should change.
Okay. Well, yes, there is freedom to wear whatever one wants to wear. Interesting question. I'm not sure how to respond to that, to be honest. But,
yeah, I see where you're coming from, Ronnie, but I think the world's gone a bit mad now. Like, you're seeing people with hats on, and it's like every...
What's you got on mute? Okay.
I'll have you know, Winston Churchill wore a hat, and he won a war, and
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair. I've moved those two to the waiting room. I'm not sure they're particularly being serious.
No, indeed. Thank you, Dan. Right. So, do we have any proper interesting and valid questions from anyone else?
There is a question regarding on the chat about the rollout of wheelie bins. I know there's any information on where that trial is and what might happen here.
You did.
Yeah, the trial has been successful. The survey of residents across Milton Keynes has been a resounding yes. The wheelie bins are wanted, and when the current contract with Serco comes to an end, I'm trying to remember when the date is. It 2023? Is that right, Leslie? 23? Yeah. Those bins, all the various colourful bins, will be rolled out to all households. Although there are, as always with these things, some areas where there isn't space to put these bins. I know the Milton Keynes Council are working with those areas to find solutions to how they could participate in that change to bins without cluttering up pavements and roads with so many bins. But yeah, it will happen. So that's going ahead, 2023.
Okay.
Hello, Leslie. I'm the person that answers the question. I live down a small, quite a close, but we have 4 houses that have a private drive, but they all put all their bin outside my house because there's no access to the for the bin man to come down. So, you know, I'm not quite sure where they're going to put all their wheelie bins, and when they do take the occasional wheelie bin now, with only just 3 of them on the curb, they're left on the actual access to our road as it is. So, you know, every time we have to go out, we have to then get out the car, move the bins out the way to get back in. So I'm a bit concerned about if we have 3 bins each, where they're going to go and where they're going to leave them after that. So yeah, I don't know how many bins we are going to have per week, because I know that won't be all out all at the same time. Thank you.
Yes, Leslie. From what I understood, they will be collected on different days. So don't think they're all going to be at the same time, but nevertheless, I see your problem, and it is not. You're not unique in that. I mean, there are many areas where there simply isn't the space. But I think it's a problem that. Have you talked to your neighbours and seen if there's anywhere else they can put those bins, or is it simply not possible for them to put them anywhere else?
No, not possible. We're the only access to the, you know, to the close where the bin men pass by, and it's on a curb. So again, they don't want to put it back on the curb. That's too much effort, you know. So they leave them on the road. And I'm just worried about more than 1 bin, you know, for each house at the moment. Anyway, it's an overhead that I have to do every week. So, but thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, please? Dan, anything on the YouTube chat?
No, no further questions on the YouTube chat, and no further questions on the Zoom chat as far as I can see.
I've just got one question. I'd like to know how we're going to jazz the city up a bit, really.
Sorry, I missed that. Who's that speaking, please?
Sorry, Mario, that was a person coming, the same person as before, coming in under a different name.
Okay. Right. See. Right. Well, yeah, Claire, please go ahead.
Hi, sorry. I know we got some. I think we've got some donuts dialing in tonight as well. But I just wanted to raise the issue about the allotments that we've got in Walnut Tree. Do we encourage anyone who owns the allotments to make sure that they're not putting down any kind of poisonous products? The reason I'm asking that is I'm involved in a local hedgehog rescue, and it would be amazing if we were able to work with the community to release hedgehogs into the allotments. But the biggest concern is obviously slug pellets. So I just wondered if there was any scope to educate those people that are in the allotments that hedgehogs are your natural slug repellents, or whether I'm just completely barking up the wrong tree.
Right, so we have our resident expert on allotments and chairman of the Duchess Grove Allotment Association, knowledgeable in these matters. Adam, I don't know if you want to comment on Claire's question.
Yeah, no, listen, this is a great thing. We, over at Duchess Grove, where we've got the association, we've been encouraging people, for instance, not to use netting down at ground level so hedgehogs don't get stuck, so they can't reverse out the netting. There are a number of people that decide not to use, for instance, what we affectionately call the blue death, which is the slug pellets, which can be poisonous. But always, if you've got anything that you want to share with the allotment sites, then we're happy to take it on board, and we can send that and share that information out to all of the plot holders. And certainly we can bob a note round and try and educate people. I think it's also fair to say that the blue death is going to become illegal from this year, next year. So that copper sulfide type poison for slugs won't actually be able to be sold, which is a good step.
Yeah, no, that really is. Is there any way that I can connect with you directly about this? About,
yeah, absolutely.
you know,
I will.
maybe doing
I'll
something?
send you. Yeah, I'll send you my email in the chat privately to you just now.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Pleasure, pleasure.
Thought a glass of beer buried in the ground was a more effective solution for slugs.
Yeah.
At least they would die a happy death.
It doesn't stay. It doesn't stay buried in the floor long on my allotment.
Okay, moving on to our next question. Graham, let's go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I understand these are testing times, and understandably so. People have concerns because life isn't too easy at the moment. But today is ultimately a day of celebration. 8 years since Margaret Thatcher died.
Wonderful.
You guys have got the patience of a saint.
Yes. Dan, thank you for policing the meeting. That's very much appreciated. Great. Well, I'd like to say something actually, a special word of thanks for our parish guardians who, despite the fact we've not been able to organise litter picks through our WCC standard scheduled activities, parish guardians on their own have been out and about consistently, keeping our neighbourhoods clean, free of litter. There's a lot of work gone on there, and we do appreciate their work always. And also our young parish guardians. I think at least we have 12 or more young parish guardians who have been out there with their small high-vis jackets, helping their parents, and interesting and encouraging to see the younger generation taking responsibilities of and also doing their bit for our community. So very much appreciated, and thank you all very much for those of you who participate. And anyone who wants to become parish guardian, please do contact us. We provide high-vis jackets and litter pickers for you, and bin bags, whatever. So if you have a problem in your area and you want to help out with litter picking, please do contact us. Okay. So any further questions, comments, issues?
There's just one question that's come on YouTube, which I think is regarding the new bin idea, wheelie bin idea. If you fill up your recycle bin, can you still get hold of and use sacks, white clear sacks? I would imagine the answer to that would be no, because the system is going to be set up for wheelie bins and not for sacks anymore. But I don't know whether anybody else can tell any more on that.
I would imagine that would be the case. Once the lorries are all geared up to take wheelie bins, I'm not sure that one of the reasons for moving away from bin bags to wheelie bins is convenience and also safety of the refuse collectors. So that would avoid manual handling of sacks in which there could be dangers, sharp objects and various other things. So I think the answer is no. We can definitely check it out with our Milton Keynes Council colleagues and just to confirm that, but I would suspect the answer is no.
Chair, just to interrupt there is going to be two sizes of wheelie bins though, but it's dependent on how many people are in your household. But I think you would have to make a case if you wanted a larger bin to it. But yes, there are two sizes, but most people will get the standard size, depending how many people are in your household. But like I say, you would have to make a case to say why you want a larger bin.
The bins are changing format slightly as well, because at the moment we put glass separately and it's going to be matched together differently. I believe it's glass and tin, and then it's paper and everything else. And they will be collected. So you'll get one collected on weeks 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and the others on 2, 4, 6, 8. Black trash, normal, waste that can't be recycled. And green bin materials will carry on being collected every single week though. So hopefully with that, and then this new hop over system, you shouldn't, unless you've got an absolutely enormous family, run out of space within the wheelie bins.
I just want to say I really like these bin suggestions.
Thank you, Bob. Right. Anyone else?
Nothing else on anywhere.
Okay, Dan. All right, well, coming up to time. We've got the final item on there. I'll say a few words on what we've done this year. Now, as you can well imagine, with the constraints of the pandemic and the lockdown, our activities have been somewhat limited and curtailed, although we have carried on. And as you've heard earlier, there's a lot of stuff going on in the planning world that has taken up our attention and resources, fighting our case for getting the best for our community in terms of what's been developed in our area, responding to consultations and so on. We've continued to meet as a council through Teams and also previously with Zoom. So all our meetings have taken place. In fact, I would say that meeting virtually has had some interesting benefits in that it has opened up our council meetings to more participation from members of the public, our residents, made it more convenient for them to drop in and listen, and some have even come in and participated as well. So that's one positive benefit. That ability to meet virtually comes to an end on the 7th of May because the government has not renewed the legislation to allow us to continue to meet virtually. So we've just been talking about what we will do after the 7th of May. Between the 7th of May and the 21st of June, which is when social distancing restrictions are likely to be lifted, which will mean that we can meet normally within our meeting areas at MK Snap. So we know we will do our best to continue with business as usual between those two dates. But it's most likely that we won't have physical meetings during that time and wait until the 21st of June before we do meet again. Other than that, we've continued to do our best to keep the area tidy. We've services that you may not notice and until it goes wrong, you don't appreciate. Things like keeping the dog bins emptied and keeping litter off our streets and dealing with fly tipping and all that kind of stuff. That's all been going on in the background uninterrupted. We have had some work done at Browns Wood, further activities there in the pitch. We're trying to create a training pitch at the back next to the play area. We have had some bridges rebuilt at Browns Wood. So there were two crumbling bridges, one near the play area and the other one towards the far end of that plot of land. And those are all up and running now and have been named. If anyone's interested, one's called Piglet Bridge and the other one's called the Caroline Devine Bridge, after a local female composer. And they all look very good. We are looking to introduce QR codes that will be placed on our council assets, such as the gym equipment around Caldecott Lake, on our bins and anything else that is an asset of WCC, so that people can go up to these things and if there's a problem with them, scan the code and report a problem very easily. So we're moving into a higher tech way of operating the council, making it easy for people to interact with us. You heard earlier that play areas we continue to plan for the refurbishment of those, and we're doing our best to make use of grants and other contributions to fund these activities and these projects. So there's quite a bit going on, keeps us all busy. And if there's anything that you think that we should be doing that we're not doing, please do always make those comments to us. We appreciate your feedback, and the more we can do, the better within our powers. And in terms of events, as you know, we over the past few years we've had a number of events, particularly at Hindhead Knoll. We've had to postpone the summer event because, given where we are in terms of social distancing, we didn't think that we would be able to hold that in a way that keeps everyone safe. So we will still do that, but we are planning to do that in the autumn now, sometime in September. And we're also going to continue with our plans for the Christmas event down at the venue. During the summer, we will be holding the summer activities for young kids and parents to participate in. So that will all go ahead, and there's a full plan for that. If anyone's interested, that should be on our website, and also will be in our newsletter forthcoming. And generally, we're doing what we can to keep things going. I'll call on my councillor colleagues. If anything I've missed, any major project that's worthy of mention, please do tell us.
I think that's a very, very good summary, Chair. Just that big thing. I'll come back to it. Said it at the start. Fill in those consultation documents.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've had 2 leaflets, and that letter should be coming through now with the last chance. Put your signature on here and post it. So very important. That's the biggest thing that's happening in our area. Okay. Good.
Was it ready to go?
Good, thank you.
Won't let you down.
Appreciate it. So last item, any other business? Anything anyone want to say? Wasn't on the agenda. Last chance. Excellent. Okay. Well, in that case, I would like to thank all of you for attending. Thank you to my council colleagues, council manager and staff, ward councillors, and other prominent members of our community. Again, thank you all very much. It's been a very good meeting. Hope you all enjoyed it and it's been useful to you. And we look forward to the coming year. Please do keep in touch with us. We're here to serve your interests, and looking forward to the year ahead. Great. Thank you all very much, and good evening.